welcome everyone to this talk show. We're going to talk about consumer trends in a post-COVID world. I'm your host for today. My name is Mark Wiseman, and I'm joined here by very established experts in the field. To my right, Cindy van Rijswijk is here. She is a senior specialist fresh produce at Rabobank. Wilke van den Berg is sitting over there. He's a market expert at the Fresh Produce Center. And to my left is Anneke Ammerlaan. She is a food trend analyst at Vision on Food. Welcome everyone. Thanks for being here today. Cindy, I'm going to start with you. You are a senior specialist fresh produce at Rabobank. What does that entail?
I do research on developments in the fresh fruit and vegetables supply chain, so looking at developments from the seed to the consumer, and we use this internally for Rabobank because we have a lot of financing, a lot of clients in the food and agribusiness, but I also use it externally to discuss with clients and to help them.
Great. So you're looking at the market from an economic perspective.
Yeah, mainly, but also what is happening among companies, how are they developing, and yeah, looking forward, what we can expect, and also what are the risks we can expect, and so on.
Fantastic. Thank you for being here. I look forward to your insights. Wilco, you are a market expert at the Fresh Produce Center, and you protect the interests of companies that are active in the fruit and vegetable industry. Is that correct?
Yes, Fresh Produce Center representing the interesting of companies, trading companies, producers association, but also companies in the logistics sector and the seed industry. Fresh Produce Center collects data. As a market analyst, I am analyzing the sales markets. I'm looking for information about the production, the import, the export, and consumer behavior, and provide this information among our members to increase sales.
Great. Thank you for joining us, Wilco. Anneke Ammerlaan, you are a food trend analyst. What does that mean?
Well, we research behavior of people in food, the way they cook, eat, and how they shop, and why they do it, and what. Well, it also has to do a lot with communication. How can you reach the consumer in their way of behavior? And what we do is mainly analyzing what we see happening on the internet, but we also travel a lot. Well, not the last years, but we also travel a lot to see what's happening. And well, let's say what I like very much is standing in the supermarket and look what people have in their baskets.
Right.
And with these outcomes, we advise the food industry, but mainly the fresh produce companies who deliver their products to the supermarkets.
Great. Well, I look forward to your insights as well. We're going to talk about the different trends that we've seen with consumer behavior during the COVID-19 pandemic. Let's begin. Before we look forward to the future, let's look back at the last 1.5 years during the pandemic. And I'm going to start with you, Anneke. Anneke, what have you seen in terms of consumer behavior, especially during the pandemic?
First of all, the interest in cooking. Let's say a lot of people started to cook for the first time, and mainly with fresh produce from scratch. And you couldn't go to restaurants, but the food delivery was possible. It was either you cook yourself at home, or you let your food ready-made delivered by all kinds of delivery companies. Your favorite restaurants, or maybe a new restaurant. That's what we saw mainly. And of course, healthy eating was suddenly immensely popular.
Where do you think that comes from?
Well, think of COVID. I don't want to get ill. So, they say if you eat healthy, you stay healthy. So that's why people were so interested in healthy. Well, let's say their possibilities in eating healthy food. Yeah. Interesting, because they didn't grab 2 pills. They were finding it in their food. They wanted to find it in their food. That's very interesting.
Right. In a way, you could say that's a positive thing. Cindy, have you noticed the same trends, the cooking from home trend within the industry?
Yes, definitely. We saw a big shift from out-of-home convenience to in-home convenience because we couldn't go out of home. So and that we directly saw in the sales of fresh cut, prepared salads and so on, that really declined. Whole fresh vegetable sales really went up, for vegetable preparing at home, like Anneke said. But I also like to analyze data. And I think we all talk about health trends, but it's difficult to see that back in hard data, actually. When orange sales increase, people said it's because it's vitamin C high fruit, but I don't know, because I think it also has to do with convenience, actually, because taking an orange to an office is not that easy to peel it, your whole suit gets dirty. I think also those type of fruit and vegetables really took advantage of people being at home and having more time to cut or peel or prepare the fruit and vegetables.
Yeah.
So I think convenience is maybe even more of a trend than health.
Right, and it must be quite interesting to analyze all that data as well. I believe you also use Google searches to see what people are looking for.
Yeah, I did that especially last year. I did some research on aubergine in particular, because we saw some interesting spike in sales, and also aubergine prices were pretty strong despite a big increase in the area and production. And I think that really had to do with the popularity of aubergine during the pandemic, and especially during the lockdowns. When people finally had time to prepare and learn about aubergines.
Right.
We saw this back in Google Statistics. In April 2020, the people started searching for recipes immediately. In most countries. In France, the effect was a little bit less. And in France, you saw every year in August, salad and barbecue season, that aubergine peaks in Google, and you didn't see that much difference. But in countries like Netherlands and the UK, it has been fairly flat and with a big peak in during the lockdown. So really interesting.
Yeah, quite interesting indeed. Wilco, what trends did you see in the last pandemic time?
I see different periods. The first period is the period of panic. There's a panic phase. We all know the images of hoarding toilet paper. But we see also people who are buying a lot more fruit and vegetables. Some weeks 30, 35 or 40% more bought volumes than the year before. And after the period of panic, followed the period of adaptation. We had to work at home. We focus on healthy lifestyle. We were buying more products online. And we can see this in the data also that we are more familiar with the situation. We have to deal with it. So some periods, in this COVID time.
Right. You mentioned an increase in the purchase of vegetables. I believe you also brought some data for that. Perhaps we can have a look at that.
Some data about the consumption. That is the situation in the Netherlands. In 2022, the Dutch people were eating 4% more fruit and vegetables than the year before. Dutch household bought 9% more for meals at home. But on the other side, you see that restaurants, catering companies served 45% less. They were closed.
Yeah.
But together, we see a 4% increase. You think 4%, that's low. But in comparing with last year's, it's a great development. In the last years, it was some years the consumption was declining. Or sometimes you see 1%, sometimes 2%, 4%. We have never seen this in the last 10 years.
Right.
So it's good for a positive element for the consumption of fruit and vegetables.
What do you think about that, Anneke?
Yeah, that's because people had time, and they needed also something to do because they were at home all the time.
Yeah.
And preparing food is something, it's comfort.
Yeah.
Making comfort food. If you prepare your food from scratch, it's a really comfort feeling. And that's why a lot of people went into food.
Right. Wilco, now I see a 4% increase in vegetables. Does that include all vegetables? Are there certain vegetables that are doing well and certain vegetables that are doing worse.
Yes, I also have a picture, maybe you can see it on the next slide.
Yeah.
The runners in 2022. The runners
Right.
were products like, when we look at vegetables, leeks, the sweet peppers, the ginger, the onions, and especially the aubergine. The aubergine, you can see the volumes went up with 35%. That's enormous. You see 20% more buyers in 2022. And that's not only in the Netherlands. The Netherlands is only one part of the cake, piece cake. But you can see all these developments in Germany and United Kingdom. So especially young people have learned to cook, and they use aubergine. You can also find aubergine in meal boxes, etc. You have they were more familiar with new products. When we look at products like sweet peppers, it's because of the health, a lot of vitamin C.
Right.
So you also see the focus on healthy food and more time to prepare the vegetables. Leek, for example, you can buy the prepared leek, or you have to the unprepared leek. You have to do it by yourself. And in 2022, people had more time to cook, and they bought more volume of unprepared leek.
Right. Very interesting. And Cindy, you also mentioned the aubergine as a popular vegetable that came through. Anneke, you also worked in making the aubergine perhaps a bit more attractive visually for consumers.
Yes, because aubergine is a vegetable you see often in the out of home.
Yeah.
And in restaurants and in street food. And what we wanted at that time, that's already 3 years ago, we wanted to have people to have a very simple recipe where you had only the aubergine and the spices to make a nice dish.
Right.
And it was the striped aubergine, the gravity aubergine, and that's very colorful. And with a special color of the spices, it was really attractive.
Good. So in a way, you could say that you can also, as the market, you can also make a vegetable more interesting for the consumers, or do you just answer a need?
And well, let's say you have to have the right moment, like the aubergine. If there was when there was no COVID, people would have eaten the aubergine, but still in the out of home.
Right.
And with eating a lot of aubergine and just missing that vegetable, you had to do it yourself at home. So you always see that something is becoming trendy, but it needs a certain reason to do it yourself. And that's not only with aubergine, but that's also, for instance, with the ginger.
Yeah, ginger, pepper, leek, perhaps. Wilco, now this is something that you've seen in the last 1.5 years. This is 2020. What do you see now?
When we look at the last information, you can see it on the next slide. Consumers still buy more fruit and vegetables. The higher consumption has continued in 2021. This is information from the last half year. And we still see that the consumption is 4% higher. The consumer bought 4% more. And runners are classic products like the cabbage category, cauliflower, pointed cabbage. Kale was also important. And you can also see again the aubergine. An enormous growth in 2022 and also in the first half of 2021. But we see a lot of products rising in volume, but not all products. When we look at fresh herbs, for example, round tomatoes, fresh prepared salads are very important to sell to restaurants in the Netherlands, but also international, the international market. So yeah, they were closed. It's not for all products we can see these positive elements.
Great. Well, thank you for the insights on the trends that we've seen so far. But it's also very interesting to look at the future, and we're going to do that in the next part. Right, let's have a look at if these trends are here to stay. we're going to look into the future, which is always difficult to do because it's, as we know now, very unpredictable, but a lot of things are changing rapidly in a lot of places. But we've discussed some trends that we've seen now. Anneke, what do you see when you look into the future?
Well, vegetables are definitely here to stay. It's part of the fact that people want to eat healthy. It's not always possible. It's not that people don't want it, but they don't know how to do it. So vegetables are here to stay. And also because we get a more vegetarian lifestyle. And when you have no meat on your plate, you need something else. Right. And with vegetables, you can do a lot, but the know-how is lacking. So vegetables are here to stay. And I think that with lesser meat, we will get more interest in other varieties of vegetables. It took a long time for the aubergine to be fashionable, but we will see other new vegetables like jackfruit is not really a vegetable, but that's one of the products which will come. The new interest like in cauliflower, because it has lots of possibilities and it has a different, let's say, different texture. So for vegetables, it's healthy and texture.
Right.
Texture, that's very important.
And
But we need better taste.
And that texture is because we need to replace the meat with something.
Meat is very much it's very much a texture thing in your mouth.
Yeah.
And when you have no meat on your plate, that's not only for the Dutch cuisine but for every cuisine, you need something not only to substitute the flavor, which you can do with spices, but you have to substitute the texture of the meat. So you have something chewy or fatty, and that's will be very important, and that's very something that the industry has to do something on.
Great. Yeah. What do you see in the future, Cindy?
I think that a lot of trends that we have seen in the past 2 years, 1.5 years, were already there before COVID, but have been just accelerated. Trends like increasing interest in local production, healthy lifestyles, a sustainability trend, cooking more plant-based food, e-commerce. So those are probably the main trends, and they will continue also in the coming years. But one thing that will come back is also out-of-home convenience, I think, and also increasing interest in the food service sector, of course. But a part of the trends during COVID will stick a little bit, I think, especially e-commerce. Also, many new people are now ordering online, people that didn't do it before. But we will also cook more from home, I think. I hope, actually. And maybe also because we continue to work from home more than we did before in the past. We have more time to prepare meals at home. I think also business travel will suffer from this pandemic. So there are more meals consumed at home or places close to home. We already see that some sandwich bars, for example, in London City, have been closed, and that supermarkets in residential areas are setting up salad bars so people can go there during lunchtime.
Right. Yeah. There's more time to cook and to prepare food. But you also mentioned local production, something that also happened already before the COVID time. Wilco, local for local is probably what it's called. Is that something that's also important?
Yes, when I look at local for local, of course you have to discuss what is the definition. Yeah. But when I say local for local, local is German food, British food, etc. Then you see that local for local could be a threat for Dutch export, but I don't think that will happen. The export will be at a high level. When I look at some information from France, Germany. They say in France, fabriqué en France is a slogan, by British first. But when I look at the data, the home production, the home production of vegetable is quite stable. I don't see a rise of the volumes. So local for local, everyone is talking about. Of course, you can You see some areas like local for local, local from the vegetables from the Westland, or that's also local. But when I look at local for the country view, then I think, people are talking about it, but in practice, I think the Netherlands will be an important player, will stay an important player in the fruit and vegetable supply.
But it is valued in a different way, because German tomatoes are priced higher compared to Dutch tomatoes, similar tomatoes in the German market, and this is also in France. Vegetables produced in France have a premium, because it's a niche product, and so it's preferred, and that's something that exported growers in the Netherlands, but also in Spain, Belgium, have to take into account. I think that they have to compete with local or domestic vegetables that may get a higher price or preference by retailers. That's definitely the case.
And it's very much in Britain or in France and Germany, let's say it's more a patriotic, it has more a patriotic background. And in the Netherlands, it's more a sustainable background to buy local for local, if you want. So that's a big difference. And what is local, as you say, because when you live in Germany, just over the border with Venlo, and Venlo is a very big vegetable growing area, it's not local because it's Dutch. No, but it's more local than a lot of German products. Yeah. So it's very difficult to.
Yes, I think it will stay a niche market. The price is higher in the supermarket, but also the cost price is higher. When you look at the cost price of tomatoes in Germany, it's much higher than the cost price in the Netherlands because of the efficiency. We look at tomatoes, and the self-efficiency. From the total consumption of tomatoes, only 10% is German production. So I think it will be there will be a lot of challenges to improve and to make the volumes higher in Germany. So I think for the next years it will be a niche market.
But it has happened in some products that local production has actually increased at the cost of imported products. Things like strawberries, for example. Right. Are more often produced domestically in glass houses instead of imported from Morocco, Spain, or Egypt. So for some products, especially the ones with the seasonal or local character, like strawberries, this is happening. And also in asparagus, we have seen this. Germany has really increased its area over the last few decades and is nearly self-sufficient now and only uses imported products just when there's shortages or when the seasonality needs it.
Right.
So it is something to take into account.
And it's an important role for the supermarkets. The supermarket in the Netherlands, and number one, Albert Heijn says, we get our products as close as possible and as far away as necessary. So that's very important.
Yeah. Well, you speak about the role of supermarkets as well. I have to continue on another topic because we talk about online delivery as well. That's something that you say has already increased in a lot of markets that didn't use it before. How is that going to change the role of the supermarkets, Wilco?
Yes, when we look at supermarkets, step into the online market. You have a new player, Picnic. It's active in the Netherlands, it's active in Germany. That's a new supermarket, but most online sales are done by supermarkets. So the people, when we look at the information in 2022, the volumes online went up with 60% and 30% more buyers. In the Netherlands, at the moment, 8% of our online purchases are fruit and vegetables we are doing online. When we compare it with some other countries like Germany, in Germany it's low, only 1 or 2%. So right. 1 or 2% of our household volumes are done online because of the role of discounters. Aldi and Lidl have no online sales. But when we look at United Kingdom, online is very famous, 15-20%. So the supermarkets are playing a big role in that. And Of course, you can see it physical. You have less visitors to visit the different supermarkets. We're doing more online, so it also has to do. The assortment is a little bit different. You miss the impulse products. You have to think about it. When you walk in a supermarket, you say, "Oh, I see nice strawberries. I'm not on my list, but I buy this product." So also online, you have to focus how to be attractive for the consumer.
There's a lot to learn for supermarkets to get more attractive online, because now it's mainly a logistic system to get your shopping at home. So that will change quite a bit. So supermarkets will change in the way they look, in the way they attract people, and the street markets will get more importance in bringing new things and new ideas to consumers. That's where people want to be inspired. And when you are behind your computer and you are making your shopping list, it's your logistic moment. So inspiration is more difficult at that moment.
Right.
And that's why you will see more out of home food in a bigger way than we see now.
Right, and so you say the street markets, of course, inspire people for new
street markets,
vegetables?
but also street food markets out of home. Let's say more the casual dining than the fine dining. They bring new ideas to people, the affordable out-of-home food.
Right, yeah, because the restaurants, of course, have a role in that too. But is in essence also the closure of restaurants in the past year has also been good for the vegetable consumption?
No, I do not agree with that statement. No? The restaurant sector is very important, is a very important platform to innovate the category, the complete category. Last week, for example, I ate a jackfruit sandwich.
Right.
I've never eaten jackfruit, but it tasted like pulled chicken. So they introduce new products to get familiar to the consumer, and that also could be maybe supermarkets said, "Oh, the jackfruit is a success. We will sell also jackfruit or other kind of products." So they have an innovative role for the complete category. Of course, you can say restaurant be closed, people had to stay at home, they learned to cook. That's a positive element. Yeah. But it's not good for closing restaurants in general. You're saying then we miss a part of the total consumption. Because last year, one of the sectors we were rising very fast was the out-of-home market. Yeah. Every year, from year to year, 10 to 15% higher volumes, also fruit and vegetables in restaurants. So it's an enormous growing sector before starting COVID.
I agree that the food service sector is important to get consumers familiar with new products, but I think there's also a lot of untapped opportunities online. We haven't seen anything yet. So there is it's a endless shelf space for online supermarkets. They can use one big distribution center instead of having a niche product in 900 supermarkets on the shelf. So that makes it easier to sell also special products. It can provide information with products. When you see it online, you can directly have information on recipes, the origin. So there's a lot of opportunities also for the vegetable sector to get consumers familiar, but it hasn't used yet. And I think for really new developments, we have to look outside of Europe and the US, where completely new e-commerce platforms come up. So in Europe, it's mainly, like Wilco said, supermarkets doing online. Yeah. But in China, for example, there's a whole new world of new e-commerce platforms that do, for example, community group buying. You see very fast delivery, which is now also spreading around the world. There's a lot of new developments, and in China, these new players like Pinduoduo, they have almost 900 million users. They directly sell melons and other fresh produce from farmers to people in mid-sized cities, so it's not only the big urban centers, and they really help to change agriculture. So I think these they skip really the whole supermarket era and just go from wet markets directly to e-commerce. So it's really a big development already here. And because Europe has such an efficient supply chain with supermarkets and discounters, it doesn't really have a chance to develop here. But in emerging markets, there is big opportunity for new players like that to have farmers directly link with consumers. This is also a trend that we've seen here with farm shops now flourishing, but that's really on a small scale. So I think Wilco knows the numbers better, but in most countries, I think there was a 50% increase in direct from farm sales. But it's just a very, very tiny percentage of total sales. So, but it is interesting that consumers get more familiar with food directly.
Thank you, Cindy, and really nice to hear all these different trends, but also quite something to keep track of if there's so many different changes that seem to happen quite fast as well. We're going to look at how these trends influence the chain in the next part. Yes, we heard very different trends here that are predicted for the future by our different experts here with very valuable insights. But now let's have a look at the impact of these trends on the chain. As you all might know, the people watching are businesses that are active in this food chain. What will be the advice you will give them to kind of adapt to these trends that are happening around the world? Cindy, I'm going to start with you.
There's no one-size-fits-all advice, I think, so it really depends on the qualities of a company, the region it is active, and the market that is serving. So very customized, I think, but it's always good to listen to your direct customers, I think, and also come up with your own ideas, how you can inspire them, and how they can use your products in a creative way, and also further downstream in the supply chain. I think you have to come up with ideas to make your vegetables easier to prepare, but also always keep high quality and provide tasty vegetables. I think that in the end will benefit the whole industry.
Do you agree with that, Wilco?
Yes, I think it started with the seed industry. As a seed company, you have to learn about the consumer trends. What does the consumer want? Consumer want more color, different varieties. We see that a lot of consumer have not enough information about the products. So at Fresh Produce Center we have started a library, a fruit and vegetable library with nearly 500 products, and we're talking about the products. What kind of product is it? How do you prepare it? With information like recipes. It's important to make it more attractive for the consumer, and especially how to prepare these products and to combine it in your meal. I think that would be very important to do it together in the chain, traders, producers association, the growers. We have to be stimulating more the trends we are seeing at the moment.
Right, Anneke, the educational part or the visual part, do you agree with that?
Yeah, I agree fully.
Yeah.
But there's something else. Visual part is often so important that people forget what does the vegetable do in your pan. There is an American chef who is now developing his own vegetable range. And what he does is not only looking at the flavor of the vegetables, but what is the behavior of the vegetable in the pan. Like when I roast, for instance, a pumpkin, or when I cook my beans, do they stay purple when the beans are purple? So that's very important, and I think that's something very new in the industry. I always try to let my clients go into the heart of their product. If you go into the heart of potato, you see something totally different. And from that inside, you can go to the outside. And you understand your product, and you know what you can do with your product. I think that's very important for growers. I see too many growers who don't eat their own product. You know, like a lot of tomato growers don't eat tomatoes. I can understand, you know, maybe you have seen them, but go into, you know, into the heart of your tomato, and from there on, see what you can do. And don't look, not only look at the future, but also at the past of your product, because in the past there is the future. And that's the main thing I want to tell growers. If you are small or big, go into your product, and you understand your product, and you can do everything Sandy said is good for the growers. You understand? So you go, when you go into the product itself, and you go into the heart of your potato, you understand how you can connect with the consumer, how you can communicate with the consumer. If you have a whole cauliflower, you can only communicate about the whole cauliflower. But if you take just one rosette of the cauliflower, you can do much more with it, because you have a whole story. And you develop other ideas of recipes or spices and things. So that's, I believe in that very much, and that's how we work.
Cindy?
Yeah, I think the story part is really important, and also growers can help doing that by being proud about the products they produce, and also promote it everywhere whenever they come in contact with people, if it's neighbors or whoever. Also children, it's important, I think.
Especially.
I had a guest lesson at a school, primary school last year, and I was surprised. I took a plate full of vegetables, and they all wanted to taste them. And yeah, when you cook at home, it's often a different thing, but they are very enthusiastic if you tell enthusiastically about it, I think. And that's also what the industry should do.
Right. One of the other influence that you mentioned earlier, and that you also spoke about, Cindy, which was quite a small percentage still. You also mentioned this about local markets and bringing that closer to the consumer. Is that something that the food chain can occupy itself with?
Now, what they can learn from it, because there is a group of consumers who want to be more involved in what they eat. So they build communities, and what they want is a community vegetable garden where a professional grows the vegetables,
Right.
and they are the participants. They pay a certain amount of money, so they know exactly how their produce is grown, and they eat only seasonal, because, you know, it's like, well, wherever you are in the Netherlands or Germany. So they know their products, and they get a lot of support by the local government, because it brings something new, and it's the way how to teach people what vegetables are. I mean, it will never be and never replace the supermarket, but these are small initiatives which brings interest in vegetables with the consumers, and also knowledge.
Yeah, for instance, urban farms.
Now, urban farming, yes, you have the urban farms. They are a bit declining because it's quite a lot of work and it's not professionally done. But if you talk about urban farming, you talk about the indoor farming, and that's grown with LED light, and it's very high tech. And what you can do is grow, well, at the moment, mainly leaf vegetables in the spot where they are used. It's still quite expensive, so you see a lot of herbs and more expensive salad varieties, but it's sold on the spot, so people have direct access to fresh produce. But now, with the high price, it's only for the top markets and the fashion. But there are really a lot of good initiatives in that.
Is that another way to bring the consumer closer to the product?
Yes, I think we have to focus more on tailor-made products. For example, you have the cauliflower. Still, there are a lot of people saying, "Yeah, the cauliflower it's too much for one person or two person." And now, and last year you had the very famous the packets with the fresh ingredients to prepare a complete meal, especially perfect for a household with children. But I heard some complaints from people, one or two person. It's too much for me. So when I make it, I eat it 3 days. Yeah. So you have to do something with that. You have different packages, different. You hear the wishes and how to translate this in the industry. I think that this is very important. A wish from consumer. So you have to also the growers, the traders. You have to think how consumers think.
Right. Well, that's a nice one to close off. I think you have to think like a consumer thinks. We've heard a lot of different insights from you today. Thank you so much, Cindy, Wilco, and Anneke, for your expertise today and to discuss these different trends that we've seen in consumer behavior. And for those watching, thank you so much for watching. If you need any more information, please contact Hazera. They are happy to assist you or bring you in contact with one of our speakers here. And we look forward to seeing you at our next talk show as well. Have a lovely day. Bye-bye.